Hello and welcome to how to build a simple registration form with PHP. So basically, if you can see from the screen, what we have here is a simple registration form which we are going to use to take data from our users, and then we'll put it into the database, and then we'll have a notification that comes here and says thank you for registering. So let's dive deep, let's just go straight into it and let me show you how it goes about. So we're going to register someone who just comes. Let's say we send a link to somebody to register. So John Doe at email.com, and then we have his educational level to what? Junior high school. Now pick his number. So let's just pick this number and then we'll register him. Now you can see from the top here that you see something says thank you for registering. So basically, that is what we are going to be building today. So it's a registration form that helps us to pick data from users. So let's not just waste our time. Let's dive deep or straight into what we are here to do today. So we'll first set up our database. So if you're using PHP, we'll be using XAMPP to do the our server side or our database to capture our server, to use it for both our server and then our database. So if you have XAMPP installed, I want you to start MySQL and I want you to start the Apache server from your end. And if you do that, then you come and then go to localhost/dashboard. If it started and everything is working, you're supposed to see something like this. Immediately you see something like this, please go to phpMyAdmin. So at phpMyAdmin, we'll come to new here is we going to add a database. So we are going to add a database. We'll call this registration. So that is where we'll be keeping our data. So registration, so whatever that we pick from the people, that is where we put them. So registration, we can call students. Those are the people who we expect to register from us. Or so put 7 here. We'll be needing 7 columns to do that. So you can put anything here. You can put users, you can put students, you can put applicants, you can put anything that you feel comfortable with. But then I would like us to use students here because the registration form has something to do with academics or something on it. So when we come here, we'll put our ID. So when you put your ID, you come here. ID is going to be something that we want it to increase itself. So auto increment. Do you get me? So we don't want to keep going back and be saying increase, add. No. So auto increment, just come to AI and then select it. It should do that for you. When you finish, you come down to what? Here. Then we type our what? First name. Our first name is going to be a variable character, and then we are going to have our first name being close to 25 characters. So the length is going to be 25. So we'll come to our last name. Last name is also going to be a variable character, and we're giving it what? 25. And we come to what? Our email. So email is also going to be what? A variable character, and then we're giving our email 50. And then we come to level. Yeah, basically, because I've done it several times, you see that I'm having those options at my end. Yes, but then I'm still typing them, so you have to still do that. And then we come to a number. So the number of the person registering, the contact details of the person. Please don't go and choose number. Make sure it's a variable character or integer. Yeah, don't go and choose integer there. That is what I mean. I mean here, don't go and choose integer there. Now when we come, we'll pick the date. So we want the date that the person is putting up the registration. So when you come to date, don't choose date. Date is only going to give you the dates that the person registers. So basically we are choosing date, time. We want to also get the time that the person also registered. If you are done with everything installing, if you are done with all these details inputs, the ID, the first name, the last name, the email, the level, the number, and the date, you please come down here, then you click save. So immediately you save, you see this appearing on your screen. So you see auto increment to reassure the fact that this is not going to be inputted by you, but then it's going to be an automatic increment by the system. We have our first name, last name, email, level, number, and then the date. So take note, we have registration and we have students, which is what our table here. Now this is what we are going to be building. If you can see from the screen well, so basically we are going to just dive straight into it. So I come to my htdocs. This is my htdocs. So I already have some files here, but then this is the one that we are seeing in another project. So we'll create a new one, which is registration, a new folder, which is what? Registration. So inside registration, we create another what? Folder. You can remember, you can do this with your Visual Studio Code. So if we want, we could just come here and open with other applications. So select Visual Studio Code. So when we open with Visual Studio Code, we have our folder opening it as a project for us. Merely our folder opens it as a project for us. Then we can even add the files and whatever that we want to add into our project here. So we have what? We have CSS here, and we close it here. So here, and we add what? A file. We are not adding the file. No, we don't want to add it inside CSS. So when we open, we add a file. So we add a file called what? Index, which is going to be our index file, index.php. And then we come to CSS and we add our file, which is star.css. Now we'll create another folder. Which is called what? Config. So it's going to be used for our configuration. And what are we using a configuration for? We'll create a file that will help us what? Connect to what? The database. Config.php. Now you can see from the screen that this is where I get my config.php. This is where I have my style and I have my index.html here. So we are going to try and connect to what? The database. Now before we do everything, we need to connect to the database and get to know what is actually working. I mean, we need to get to know that it's working before we move on. So how I usually like to start with is, please remember that you're supposed to type PHP before you start everything. So I start by calling out the what? Time zone. So you know we all live in different time zones, and then if you want to get a system to what? Set the default time zone for you, you have to do that. Now any part of the world that you are in, any continent, you can choose your continent first. So if you are in Europe, you go Europe, and then you choose your what? Your city. If you are in America, you choose America, then you choose what? Your city. If you are in Africa, you choose Africa / your city. If you are in Asia, you choose Asia / what? Your city. Wherever you find yourself, you're supposed to what? Choose that place and then / what? The city you come from. Now we create what? A variable called con. In PHP, we create variables by putting $ in front of what? Whatever text that you type. So this is con is now what? A variable. What we are going to tell con is that it's going to be our connection variable. It's supposed to help us connect to what? The database. So we say con, and then we call MySQLi_connect function to help us do what? Our connection. Now it takes 4 arguments. So the first one is going to be what? Our local host. So let me take you back here. If you come here, you notice that this is our registration. You see the server here as what? Localhost, and you see the database here as what? Registration. So these 2 informations are going to be very important if we are going to connect to what? The database. Now we'll put root as our user login details, so username or something. So root is our username, and then we have an empty quote here where you see it's supposed to take our password, but then I've not placed any password on it. If you want, you can just go to your PHP init and then you can put a password there, but then I've not placed a password in there. So you can still go and then put a password on your database. No, not PHP init. You go to PHP and then you can do the password changes that you want to do. Now this is where we've created. Now if you see here, you see a mistake that I've done. Registration. It's supposed to be registration because our database name is not register. It's registration. So when we put registration, we come and tell it that if my SQLi underscore connect returns an error number, will echo failed to connect, and then we attach the the error number, where our error is coming from. Else, now this I'll take it off, but then we're just going to use it to test. Else echo connected successfully. So now let's try and load up our file here and see how it goes. So for you to load it up, you go to localhost /apps, that is where my file is, /registration. Now bear in mind your link might be different from mine, so I decided to go into htdocs. You know, that is where you find your PHP files, htdocs, and then I created a folder called apps, and then inside apps I created the project that we're working on. So when you come here, you see registration / there. Now the reason why we are not having anything showing here is because we haven't linked our pages together. So when we come here on our index file, we put our PHP file here. There's nothing on our PHP file, that is why you've not seen anything. So we come here and then put a require. So require, then we say inside. This first slash is saying inside. Let's go inside, and then config, and then config.php, and then now we close it. So when we close it, you will see from here that it will appear connected successfully. So it's just told us that we've been able to connect to the database successfully. That is what we wanted the database to show, the page to show at the index.php page to show us. Now basically that is going to be a page we'll be working with. So doc type HTML, and then we have HTML, so inside our HTML we have we have our head. Our head is going to take mostly our links and our script files. So then we have our body. So when we come to our head, usually we like to set our meta, which is our character set. The character set we'll be using, this is a universal character set. So when you load it onto any server, you know, so okay, we're using this is by default mostly on every server, and then every website should usually have it. If you don't have it, it doesn't really do any change. But then if you are going to put it onto the server, I advise you put it there first. Now this is going to be our viewport. What is this going to do? This is going to help us to code for our device. That is, if we open the device, if we open the page on any phone or something, then the settings for the device should change. So we are putting that there to just tell the website that if it opens on any other device, then the viewport, how it views there, should change. I don't know if you get me. So link, we have we have our style sheets here. So style sheets, and then we have href here. Now inside here we'll have just our CSS, and then we're going to link our CSS file. So style dot what CSS. So the type is text/CSS, and then we're done linking our file. So we head straight into our head. We head straight into our body. So when we go to the body, we are going to create what? A div. A div is basically the building blocks. So it's like a division we are creating. Now we would like to create our main div and give it the word main. We'll give it a class name main underscore page. So I would like to call it main what? Page. And then we'll have another div. Have another div. Then we'll call it main underscore sub page. So inside our main underscore sub page, we create what? Another div. I will call it main underscore what? Section. So this is going to be our main what? Section that will be what? Creating. Inside our main, no, that is going to be our heading section, not our main section. We'll be creating a heading section there. So if you look at this here, you see that this is going to be our heading section, and then we'll come and create this form field here. So basically that is what we are trying to do. So let's go back. We are in our heading section. So inside our heading section, we'll come and create our h1 tag, which is our initial first heading. So we'll give it a class called what? Main head. So main head, we're going to put talent house. You should type that in caps if you want it to come, even though you can go into CSS and then change how you want it to look like, but then we'll be typing it in what? Caps here. The class here is what? Is sub head. Now here what we'll tell them is that welcome to talent house. Please fill out the form below to register. So basically that is what we are telling them, to fill out the form below to what? To register. So if you check, we have our h1, we have our h3 here. So that is our main what? Heading. Inside our main heading we come down. So we are not outside our main heading, we won't be inside. So outside we create a section what? Tag. So if you are using HTML5, you know we have sections part of it. So we create our section, then we call it form section. That is where we are going to start creating our form. Inside our form section, we are going to create a div, and we'll call this div sub form. So we'll call it sub form. Now inside our sub form, we are going to create what? We're going to come up with our form. This is where we'll pick all our data. So in HTML5 we have the form which picks what? Action, and then picks the method, and then we have the method type being what? Post. So the method type being what? Post. So we have get and we have post. If you put get, it means you are transferring the information through the URL, but then post, we're not doing it through the URL. Do you understand me? Yeah. So we're not going to do that through the URL, but then at the point in time, if we need to, if you are building an app and you need to transfer information just like an ID number or something, you can literally most times push that through your URL. And then today we can't do that. If you put information through the URL, everybody will be able to see the informations and other stuff. So we're not doing that. Now we come to what? The inputs, type of input that we have, and it's going to be what? A text input, because we are going to take their what? The first name. So the name of this input tag is going to go f name, which is a short form of what? First name. We have a placeholder. Now the placeholder is going to just help us. Let me show you what the placeholder does. So here you see first name inside. That is what the placeholder is all about. The placeholder is just supposed to like temporarily just put the name or guide you to what you're supposed to type inside that what? That input space. Now we'll give it an what? An ID, which is a unique identification, and call it reg f name. So registration first name. So in case we want to edit that one, we want to give it some special characters, we know, okay, this is basically what we do. And then we'll give it a class name registration or reg underscore what? Input. Sorry, not registration, reg underscore input. We're going to make sure all this have required at the end of them. Every input here should have what? Required. If it doesn't have required, then you're going to have people logging in empty informations for you, which I know you don't want to do that. So we'll be having what? Required here, and then we'll be doing what we want to do. Now if you reach here, you copy and then you come and paste. So we paste and we paste. I think we'll be needing 4 of it. Now when we come here, we just change this to what? L name. We change this to last name, and we change this to reg underscore L name. Reg underscore L name. We'll still keep this our what? Input. Now this is going to be our what? Email. And this is going to be placeholder, is going to be what? Email, and then reg underscore email, and then we'll have reg what? Input. So basically these are going to take the same steps. Now text, this is going to be our number, and then we'll put placeholder as what? Number here. Now I didn't want us to make it so complicated. We can actually add country codes to it. So if you want to add country codes, you'd have to, you can still use there's a JavaScript library that I saw that you can actually use to help you do that. Now when we come here, we go inside and we create a what? A select tag. The select tag is supposed to help us what? Create an options section for us. So we name the selects edu underscore what? Level. So when we go inside the edu level, we have options. Sorry, not opt group. We have what? Option. So our first option, if you see something here, let's go back to the page. You see that our first, it has educational level, and then that is something we can't select. So we're just putting the information out, then that okay, We need to put the educational level, but then it's not something that we want you to be what to be able to select. Now let's give our level a class. So the class is going to be what? Level. Now when we come here, we have what? The first one, as I told you, is going to be disabled selected. So we are going to what? Disable the first one. So you can't select it. It's going to be just what? A disabled. And then we'll put educational level there. So the educational level is supposed to be more like a hint. So that will be the placeholder when it comes to you using select. Do you get me? So yes, the placeholder when it comes to you what? Using select. So we go and then we now put another option. Another option. So this option, we're going to give it a value of what? Tertiary. Depends on where you are, but then wherever you are, you can put anything you want. You can put college, you can put tertiary, you can put university. I'll put tertiary here. So when I put tertiary, so just give it a duplicate, and then tertiary, the next one here, down here we put senior high school. So then we come here and we make the changes as what? Senior high school. So you do it how you want it to be from your end. We have what? Junior high school. So basically we type the same thing here as junior high school. So we have here, I decided to put here self-education. So self-education, and then our last one is going to be education of life. So education of life. So we are going to put that here. So that is going to be our select. So we have our options there, which is taking the value tertiary, senior high, junior high, self-education, and education of what? Life. So you see we have the number here down there. That's why I decided that we just put the number here. Now when we come here, we have another input here that we are going to create. But then this input is going to have a different type. It's going to have the type called submit. This is a button we are creating here. So take note of that. It's a button we are creating. The button is supposed to help us to what? Submit our documents, submit our information that we capture from what? The database. The forms, sorry. And we have what? We'll call it, we'll give it a class name reg underscore what? BTN. So the value is going to be what? Register. So the value is the text that you see on what? The button. So this is going to look like a button. If we go back, you see a button here. If I have to go back, you see a what? A register button here. This is how it's going to be. Now let's go back to our page. This is just what we want at the end, but then let's go back to our page here and then see how we are faring so far. Sure. So let's reload here and let's see what we have done so far. So from here you see Talent House. Welcome to Talent House. This is basically what we've been able to put. and you see the select with the options given here. So then we are done with what? Our HTML. We are done with the information that we are going to be putting here, and so we'll go back to what? We'll now go to our what? Our CSS, which is our style. So let's come here and then let's call our HTML, comma, our body. Let's just give them a margin of 0. Take a margin of 0, and the height should also be 100%, and the width would also take 100%. Now see if you can find any changes. Did you see any changes? Yes. Now basically, if you want to do CSS editings, mostly you just come to inspect here, then you use this to mostly do your editings. Yes, so you can use it to do your editing. So when we finish, you see that when we select HTML, our codes are supposed to show here that yes, we're working with what? HTML. And then basically I can't see any HTML codes here. So if you don't see any HTML codes, that means that you have to check again. So let's hard reload and see. Okay, so after hard reloading, we can see that it's in. You can, if you don't see your codes, you can actually do a normal reload, or you could do a hard reload. If it doesn't work with that, you come down with an empty cache and hard reload. Sometimes hard reloading helps the system to be able to load back all the codes that you wrote that it hasn't done that yet. So you see that after putting that, we had changes in what how it's looked like. Now I told you we have something we call main page. We have a div called main page on the screen. Now we're going to give it a display of what? Block. So it should give us a block display, and then the position, we're going to give it a fixed position, and then the width is going to be 100%, and we'll give it a height of also 100%. Now we'll give it a margin of what? 0, and then we'll save. So when we save, let's go back and see what is happening. So it's basically the same thing. Now I have this image that I want us to use. You can actually use any image, but then if you want, I would put it in the link below, then you'll be able to get the image. So I just come here and then pick this image here in previous file and then paste it here. So I want us to put an image here as the background. It just changes the way the whole thing looks like. So we'll give it a background. Do you get me? A background. We're going to create. What I want us to do is that we're not just going to put a background, but then we're going to put a linear gradient. We're going to put a color on the background. So I'll be using RGB color code. Did I just type RGB color code? Now linear gradient takes 3 arguments. So those are the colors, because it's a gradient. It's called gradient. It's a mixture. You're mixing certain things together for the colors. So 40, you don't have to quote this. You can actually go and copy, and then we'll give it an opacity level. Then we come here and then put the next color. If you put only one, it's not going to work. It's a mixture, so it's going to be mixing the colors for you. 42 and then 53. So we'll give it an opacity of 0.80. So when we finish, we come here and then we type URL. URL is going to take the image, which is the image we'll be putting in our background. So if you check here, I'm trying to capture the image. Let's see if it's loaded. Yes, it's loaded here. I hope it is not finding itself inside CSS. No, it isn't. So we come here. Okay, I'm not finding it. Okay, so basically, okay, so basically we are inside the image folder. We want to go out of it. We're inside the config folder. We want to go out of it. This is actually supposed to be inside. So if we want to go out of any folder, we come out of it, and you pick what the image that what we have here. Where you pick the image, you save anything that you try and what save it. Now you see that after saving, you see that it changes. The looks here changes, and then everything here changes. Now we need to do further editings to make it look the way we want it to look like. So when you come here beneath the main page, you give it a background what size, a background what size of what cover. That is, it should take every part of what the page. It should cover everything. Now background position, we say what center. Now if you can see, we'll go back and then we'll try reloading it and see what happens. And you see that it takes the whole page. Can you see it? So our background position, and then our background cover, this will take it off. That is coming from what our CSS. So we can comment it out, and then you see that it gives us our whole what page the way we want it looking. So at the end, we are looking for something what like this. I think the colors I'm using here are different from the colors that I used. Let me confirm and see. The color is RGB 4053. Okay, so I have a mistake here in the RGB. That is why I'm not getting what I want. It's supposed to be 40, 42, and then 53, not 40. Sure. So this is how it's supposed to look like. So let's go back and see if I'll get the color that I wanted. Okay, I have an error. Okay, send it. Miss that. So basically this is the color that we want to show on the screen, and it's missed. In fact, we missed it. So we come to our main sub page. So we call it, we give it a name. So main sub page. We'll give it a display of what? Also block. Now after the display of what? Block, we'll give it a width of 50%. So we'll go back to the page, then you see what we're talking about here. We're giving it a width of what? 50%. And the margin here, we want it to be what? 3% away from the top and 3% away from the down there, and the side by side should take what? 25%. Now the margin is going to cover both sides. So since we are giving it a width of 50%, it's going to bring the div into the middle for us. Do you get me? Now you will see what I'm talking about. And then we'll give it a background color. There's this favorite background color that I want. It's called tomato. It's hashtag FF6347. It's called what? Tomato. Now you give it tomato, and then we'll give it a padding. The padding is supposed to create space inside the div. The margin is supposed to create space outside the div. So take note of that. So this pattern is going to give us just spaces inside. So we just put some of the things away from the lines or the borders, so that it makes it look better, and then the way we want it. This is for our text. So we are going to color all the text white, and FFF 3 times will give you what? White. Now let's go back to our page, and then let's see what is happening. So you can see from what we've typed, we have it now in the middle, and then it has talent house, it has everything the way what we hope to get it. So let's go back to our codes again. Now we'll give it a what? A border radius. So border radius is supposed to not make the tips pointed like that. So you see, just take a look at here, you see they are pointed. So we give it a radius, they become what? curve. That is how our border radius is going to look like. We'll give it an opacity, so it looks too dark. Opacity is supposed to make it look light again. And then we'll give it a box shadow. Box shadow is going to make the box look like it's standing. Do you get me? So currently we have it looking like it's just lying flat. So we'll give it a box shadow of 5px, 5px, 10px. So that is down, right, and then left. Do you get me? We don't usually give the top there, so it's down, left, and then the right. And we're going to give it a color. We're going to make it look black. RGB 000. Give us what? Black. And then this is our what? Opacity. We're giving it what? A 30% opacity. Now you can actually do it comma 0.7. like you just keep doing it until you get the level that you want. You can still use percentages here. So here basically that is what we're using. So as I said, we're going to make this here look like it's a little bit raised. That is what the box shadow is. And then we are going to also give it opacity. So we're going to make it look a little bit transparent, not too much transparent. So take note of what happens after I reload the page. So if you took note of it, you can see it. Now this place looks like what? It's now standing on something. So you see the box shadow here. There's a shadow here, and you see that you can now see the head here. It's because of what? The opacity. That is why it just behaved that way for us. Now we are done with this. Now we want to go inside and what? Fix what we have what inside. When you come back to your index.html here, we have our what? Heading section. We just edited our main page, our main sub page, and we haven't edited the head section yet. But now we are going to what? The form section. Now before we go into the form section, let's just pick our subsection here. Our sub form. The form section is basically this one here, but then we can still use the what? The sub form. So let's pick the sub form. Any of them will work for you. So let's just edit the what? The sub form here. What do we want it to do? We want it to display block. You know what block is? And it should be relative. So relative to its mother display. So it should relate to that. So we have a margin of what? 1 rem. You can actually use pixels, you can use rem, you can use percentages. So 3 of them, anyhow you want it. The calculations, I've forgotten the conversion rate, but then rem is a little bit higher than the pixels. So we have the rem and we have the pixels here. Now we have our sub form. So let's load and we'll see the changes here. You see it's placed them in what? The middle nicely the way we want it. It's just not that much, but then it's a little bit what? Editing. Now let's come back and then let's go to our heading what? Section. If you remember our heading section, we gave it a class name of what? Heading underscore section. So you come here, you see it's heading underscore what? Section. So under our heading underscore section, we come and then we display its what? Block. Give it a display of block. And then our text align is going to be what? Center. We want to center the text inside our what? Heading. Now we'll give it a margin of what? 1 rem. Now you save and then we'll go back and we'll reload, and you can see the changes that has what happened there. Now we are going to our input. This input that we have here. So you see that we've given it a class name reg input, reg input, reg input. So we don't want to pick individually and then be editing them. Do you get me? We want to group all of them and then give them an editing all of what a time, because they are basically all the same, apart from the select, which takes different values sometimes and looks different. Mostly you have all the inputs taken with the same way of what editing. So we'll give them display of what block, and we'll give them a width of 70%. we want them to cover the whole, not the whole, but then just a part of it. So just watch something. See, immediately we give it a width of 70%. They come. So after this editing, you see how it will look like. We give it a padding. So padding is basically the space inside. I told you padding is space that we want to give inside the device, the div, and margin is the space we want to give outside the what, the div. So we have what, 12 pixels, and we have what, 15% here. So we have our border what, radius, as usual and as always. We don't want to have a square ending, so we'll give it a border radius of 20 pixels, and then box sizing, border box, and then we'll give it a border. So this box sizing is supposed to help us apply some other editings or features that we want in the future, even though we can still do away with it. So we have our box sizing. So you see that after everything, it looks what, different. So it just changed the way we want it to be. Now if we come to our level, we can actually give it the same. So we can actually put our level here, and then we'll have the same what, editing for what, our level. So let's put our level here. So our level also gives us the same, even I said sometimes it works differently, but then this time it hasn't. So btn, which is register btn. Now the display is also going to be what, block, and we have a width of 70%, and we'll be having a margin of 12 pixels. Now bear in mind, we can actually still use, we are trying to use the don't repeat yourself section. You see that we're basically repeating the same thing, width, block, all those stuff. So we can actually add the reg button at the top here, then we'll pick its ID, or we'll pick its ID, then we'll give it the other codes that we want. We can't add them at the top there, but then we've already typed them. So but the next time you can do that. So you add it to this side, this place. When you add it there, then you come and pick the ID. The ID is supposed to help you give it the unique features that you know we are working with the button here. So you see that we're giving it a background color of ash 00BFFF. That is something like light blue. So you see here we have what, light blue here. So we want to give it what, a background color of what, light blue. It just came the way we wanted it. Now we've not given it a border radius, so it still looks boxed. We are going to give it a border radius just like everybody of what, 20 what, pixels. So you see it just looked different after we give it a border box. We're going to give it a border. I can see it looks black on the sideways, so we're going to give it a border of solid of our color, so that it blends. We don't want to see any black there. And then we'll give it a box shadow. I like the box shadow. It makes the input looks like it's not flat, so it's going to be what, standard. So we'll be giving the same features that we used. Now let's come and load and see what is happening. So you see the box shadow, and I think here you can see it clearly. It looks like the button here is raised. That's how it looks. It looks raised, and it's all due to the box what shadow. So now we are done with our basic what editing. So now you can see that it looks similar to the way we want it to look like. So this is how it looks like, and then now it looks what similar. So this is the one we're working with, and this is what we have what here. And I think you should be happy that you're able to create a form like this. Now our next section is to create our PHP file. The PHP file is supposed to help us to what connect this to what our database, if you understand what I'm saying. So the PHP will go, and then we'll go into our what index.php file. Now index.php file, you come what and go down here. Now so here we can give it a comment of what establishing connection, so that next time when you come, you know you establishing connection with data what base. Establishing connection with database. Now we come here and then we'll declare what variables here, because we are going to be picking variables and be putting them into the what database. Declaring variables. So I told you in PHP when we're declaring variables, we put the $sign what in front of them. So we haven't picked them yet, so we just give them empty. So it means they are going to be what strings. You're supposed to declare them first before you input them. So email, and we have what level, and then we have what number, and then we have what notify. So I'll tell you what notify is going to do here, and then I think we're done. So we have f name, l name, email, level, number. Those are the important things that we put. Now what we are telling the system is that if you press the button, so if it sets, that is the function that is going to help us with pick, or we get notified when the button is pressed. So it says if it is set, or it is what pressed. That is what it means. If it's set, which is if that button, that the submit button gets what pressed, and it says posts, pick all this what values. So post picks the data and it transfers it through the what the body. As I told you, it transfers it through the what the body. So it says post pick this data. If it's set, I want it to pick this data that we've transferred through what the post what method, using our reg what button, and then let's continue what we want to do with it. So when we pick the data, so let's say you put the information and then you are done. So we now want to edit the information that we pick before we put it into the what into the database. So we come here and say what first name. Now first name, we pick what f name. So check here, we're saying that trim is going to help us take any unnecessary things that what we don't want in our what f name. So it picks the data as a payload. When it picks it as a payload, you have a lot of stuffs in them. So it picks f name, because when you check here, we said what if you pick it, you should give it the name what f name. So it's going to be like a JSON file where it has f name and then the value. So l name, then it has the value. So that is how it's going to be like. So we are saying that f name here, the value f name which we created here, should be assigned to this. The variable f name should be assigned to this value, which is name, f name, which we are going to pick from what our input after we press the register what button. So but then what we are saying that it should trim. What trim does is that it takes off any unnecessary thing that you don't want. So special characters, space, all those stuff, even though we'll still take the space what out again. So trim does that. You can actually go and read more about it on the PHP website. So we strip what? Tags. Now this is all supposed to what? Help us protect ourselves. We strip what? Tags of what? The f name that we already now have assigned the value to it. So now if we call f name here, it's going to be what? This value. So here we don't have to say underscore post f name again. No, we just pick this value which we've already trimmed, and then we put it here. Now the next thing, we'll do the same thing. Our f name is going to be what? String underscore what? Replace. So what we're doing is that in case somebody puts a space, open space, which we don't want, we replace it to what? A closed space. And then that is what our this f name that we've picked, that is what it's supposed to do. And then we have our f name here, which is UC words. So we'll be using UC words. So it means that it should pick the first letter and then turn it into caps for us. So uppercase words. So the first one is going to be what? Uppercase. But then we don't want everything to be uppercase. So what we are going to do is that we'll say string to what? Lower first. So it should first lower them, and then which is the one inside. The one inside is supposed to give us lower caps for all. When it finishes, then it picks what? This one, and then it edits it and gives us the first one as what? A caps. So some people can type caps, let's say a toggle caps, up, down, up to camel case or something. So when we have such things, we go like, no, we want the first one to just be caps, but then the rest is supposed to be what? Small. So if you understand, that is what we are trying to put here. So let's just copy this here and come down here and copy this again. So we just change the values here to what? Last name, and then this is going to be what? L name, L name, L name, L name. So we change what? The L name here too, and we change what? The L name here. We want to do the same thing to what? Our last name. When we come, we want to do the same thing to what? Our email too. So we have what? Email here. So when we pick email, this is also going to be what? Email. And we have what? Email too. So we just, what we're doing is we're just changing the figures to what? Email, email, email. So we come and then we put our what? Our level 2 here. So take note of something here. I'm going to change this. I'm going to delete this, which is a string replace of what? Empty space, because we have spaces in our level, which bear in mind the level values are values that we are putting in ourselves. So we're not picking it from the person, but then we've kind of showed the person that we want, this is what, how we want the person to put the values for what. So here, if you check here, we have what we call what? Edu level. The name here is what? Edu level. So it says, oh, okay, this is the name you gave me. So we are going to pick the value from what? Edu level. And so when we pick that value, we assign it the word what? The name what? Level. So when you assign the name level, I want you to strip every tag in it. So there's a tag, even though we don't have to be scared about it, tags, because a select is information that we have put, and then we know how it looks like, so you can't be scared about it. Then we come to the number. So number, we are going to change and then put what? Number here, and then we put number also here. Bear in mind that we are doing the same for what? Number 2. So when we finish with the number, then we come and then we call our what? We create a date variable. So the date is supposed to actually give us the date. So what we are saying is that we want it to be in this format: year, month, and then the day. So hours, and then minutes, which is I, and then seconds. So this is how we want what the dates to be. So basically this gives us what? Current what? Current date. It gives us our what? Our current date. Now we now have our variable. So what we do is that we create a what? A query. A query variable which is going to help us send the what? Information into the database. So we call the query what? Function. Then it takes 2 arguments. It takes a connection name, and then it takes our arguments, which is whatever thing that we want it to do. So basically we are going to say insert into, what did we call them? Now let's go back here and then see what we called here. Registration, we call them what? Student. So the table here is what? Student, but the database is what? Registration. You have a table called what? Student. So insert into what? Student values. Now bear in mind that these are my SQLi codes that you can actually type, yes, but then this makes it simple for us to insert it because we're going to be inserting it from this PHP file. Now values this. Now look at what is going to happen. I want you to look closely as this. A little mistake and then you will find what? Wanting. Now this first value is going to be what? Null. We're not going to insert anything there. It's null because this is auto increment. So the system is going to increase it itself. So we are going to set it to what? Null. So the first value is what? No, I told you there are 7 values, so take note. I want you to watch very, very carefully. No, and then make sure that they are all in what? Single quotes. So now then we now put what? Our f name. So the f name variable is going to go next. Then we put our quote for what? Our l name. Our l name goes next. Then we have what? Our email. Our email goes, then we have what? Our what? Level. So we put our what? Level. After our level, then we'll put what? Number. Okay, so there's a mistake here. I just took note of it. Number. Okay, so put our number, and then the last is going to be what? Our date. So put our date what? Inside. Now bear in mind that this is going to what? Do the insertion into the what? The database for us. So I think basically we can now try it and see if our data will go into what? Our database. So you reload. Okay, so we have an error somewhere we have to what? Correct. I haven't set the error to true. It would have just showed us where the error is. But let's go through it. I just saw this error number. if reg underscore, okay, so we have this set. In order to prevent you from struggling like this, you could just go and set the error to on, so it shows you that basically on line 47 of this you have an error what here. Now I just found it, I forgot to close this, that's why we have that error. So if I go back and then load, it should what now work. Now so let's put our first figure here. So let's just say John am I failing to spell John? Then we have Doe. We have John Doe at email.com. So we choose his level to what tertiary, and we put 1 2 3 4 5 up to what 10, and then we submit. Sorry, 1 2 3. If we submit and we don't get any error, it means that our data what went through. Now we just submitted. Now we can change this cursor to what pointer, that is for the button. When I put here, you see that it comes as what a normal what pointer. So this is now what our registration. So let's reload and see what happens if our data is going to show. So we have what students here, and you can see that our data has shown. So we have ID 1, we have John Doe, we have email, we have level. So if you did everything right, you're supposed to see it working perfectly well for you like that. Now what we are going to do here is that basically, so now our form is able to take the data and then put it into the what database the way we want it. Do you get me? Yes. So now I want us to check here, and then no, let's go back. Let's go back to our page that we are using currently. So now if we come here, what I want us to do is that I want us to be able to create something so that when the person finishes, the person knows, oh, okay, I'm done submitting. I'm like, the person should have an idea of what he's doing. So it shouldn't just be something that you just finish and then it looks inactive, like the way we see on our screen. Now, I told something, we create something called, we created a variable called notify. So we're going to say if query, it should what? Array. You know what arrays? If you don't know arrays, don't worry, stick to my channel and then you know all of that later on. So this is an array that we created. If you remember, I said notify underscore push should be what? An array. It can't just be like that. It's supposed to be what? An array here. We create an array, then we what? We put values in it. So what we are saying is that put inside the notify array. Now here we are saying if query. Now bear in mind that the if statement takes an argument of what true or false. If this is true, this is going to what execute. If it is false, it's going to have the what else executing. So query returns true or false. If this is able to finish executing, it's going to return what? True. If it returns true, it's going to come here and then it's going to make what? This first one here, the first part of what? The if statement what? Execute. If it's false, it's going to make the what? The second part what? Execute. So we're going to create a span. So if you know a span is part of the family of the divs. So we are going to create a span, and we can actually edit the span from our CSS, but then we can still also edit it. This is inline editing of what? CSS. So we are going to give it 21. Inline editing of what? CSS. 21, and then 239, and then 239. That is how we want it to what look like. That's the color we want to what give it. So when we are done, we close, then we open our what we close our what span tag. But then before we finish, we type the text we want the people to see. So thank you for registering. So we're saying thank you for what? Registering. Now we want to give it a break, so we'll give it a BRK so that it doesn't join with any other line. That is what the B break does. It makes it not join with what? Another line. So if it does that, else what we are going to say is that else the array should push a different thing inside, which is sorry, your registration did not what? Go through. So you should tell the person, sorry, your registration didn't go through. Retry again. So we're telling the person, sorry, your registration didn't go through. So retry it again. So if it returns false, so we are going to tell the person that please retry it what? Again. Now bear in mind that we've typed what it wants to do, but we have to make it appear on what? A screen. There's no echo here. If you see here, you see that there's no echo. So if we just leave it like that, PHP is going to just show it at the top there for us, and it's not going to look nice on our screen. So we want it to look nice. So basically we come to the heading here. If you can see where I am at the heading section, then we come and then what? We type what we want here. So what we want it to show. Bear in mind you have to call what? PHP, please. Don't forget this. Put it in the what? The PHP tags for the PHP codes to run for you. If you just leave it like that, it's not going to work the way you want it. So we'll say if now we said it should push that into those statements into the array. So now we're going to say that what? If you find this in what? Our array, which is what? What do we want it to find? So we are telling it, if you find this statement, which is the whole of this, copy everything here and go and put it what? Inside. If you find this in what? Our array. Now in array takes also what? 2 arguments. So if you find this in our array, so we push this inside first, then when we finish we give it what? A comma, then we put what? Notify. If you find notify, if you find this string in our array, what we are telling you is that you should what? Echo it. Echo it. Show it out. So echo means what? Show it out. So we say just show it the same thing out for us. Do you get me? So if you find this in our string, we want you to show it here, just here, right here. Put the span at this top here for us. Do you get me? Now else if, because we're going to throw a what? A statement. If you do else, it's not going to work the way you want it to do, because else is not going to execute any argument for you. Do you get me? So else if would give us what? An ability for us to execute an argument, and after that it shows us what the results we want. Do you get me? So else if we have rather this in our array, so if we have this in our array, which is registration didn't what? Go through, so you come and then you paste it just like what we did. If we have this in our array and we have what? Which is notify array, then what we are saying is that oh, okay, I'm seeing an error. Okay, so if we have what? This rather in our what? Error, what we are saying is that you should what? Echo that out for us. Sorry, registration one did not go through. So basically that is all what we'll be doing what here. So if you finish, you can just close the space here out, and then we're done. So let's come back and then what? load. So localhost apps registration, and then reload it. So now let's go. Let's put I'm putting my local names here. Akos Santana. So Akos Santana at gmail.com. Educational level is education of life, and the number is 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. And then we say register. It says thank you for registering. That is what we wanted. So we have successfully achieved the form that we wanted to create. So this is a simple registration form which picks the values. As you know, we went through all of that, typing all these codes for it to work the way we want it. So you have at least a fair idea of what CSS does, which is give you a nice look. And then we have our config file which helps us to do the connection. I said we will change the button here. So we'll put our cursor to a pointer. So that's the reg_button. So our cursor is going to be pointer, so you can see that it's okay. Now if you try to load here, you see that it's going to tell you register. That's what the required does. Please fill out form. The required. So when I say required, I mean this part of the code. If you don't put this here, anybody can just put information. This required here, that is what it does. So please don't forget to put the required that we're supposed to put there. So we'll have our cursor to be pointer. No, okay, so let me see what we use here. Yeah, it's supposed to be pointer. I don't know why it's still misbehaving here. Okay, I think I might have to do a hard reload. Yeah, I told you it happens sometimes. You could just go here and then yeah, you see it's back. So this looks nice. Yes, so you see it looks nice until you open it on a phone, then it looks not nice at all. So the last part of this video, I'm just going to show you how to make it look better on a phone screen. So we're going to come here and then we'll go to media maximum width. So this is supposed to take place when you have width be maximum. That's the maximum width we're giving it. So if it's 800 and above, it's not going to take effect. So the maximum width for this editing is just 800. So 800 and below. Take note. So we have main page here. What we are doing is that we want to give it a minimum height of auto. So it will automatically pick the minimum height, and then the minimum width is also going to be auto. And then we'll have our overflow. Now what overflow is doing is that when you minimize, I want you to check something here. When you minimize, there's something called overflow. So you see some part of the screen is hiding here, which we can't see. But then what we are going to tell is that anytime we minimize and it gets to this limit and then there's an overflow of the screen, please, we want you to put a scroll for us. So what I just told you is that the horizontal part shouldn't have a scroll, but the vertical should have a scroll. So if you know how an axis looks like, you know your y is your horizontal, your x is your horizontal, your y is your vertical. If you drew graphs in school, then you should know this. Yes, so your y and your what? Your x. So your x is your horizontal, your y is your what? Your vertical. And let's look at the effects on the page. So you reload, and then you see that now we have what? A scroll. At first it wasn't working. If you had tested it, you see that it wasn't working. Now you have what? A scroll what? Working. So now we can scroll and then get more information what about. But we want to still edit it and make it look what? Better. So the main page is going to what? The main sub page, we're going to do something to it. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to change the width to what? 60%. So, and then I'll give it a new margin of 2% up, 20% sideways. So let's look at what happens. You see it has changed. Yes, we're not done. So the more changes we do, the more effect what it will take. So we're going to say that our sub form should take a margin of what? 0. Our sub form should take what? A margin of what? 0. So let's go and you see what is happening. You see it just opened up for us. More to come. Just wait. So we are saying that reg underscore what? Input. We're going to increase both the width and then we'll reduce the what? Margin. We're saying the margin is just going to what? 10 pixels. So now you see that I'm using what? Pixels on and off. So here we're saying the margin should just what? 10 pixels. So you see it's just what? Increase in what? In width. Now, as I told you, we can just do a comma dot what? Level here, so that the level also what? Gets what? Affected. So the level just go what? Open the way we want it to what? Open. So we don't have to type level again. We can actually even do the same thing for what? Reg what? Underscore what? Button, and then it will also behave the same way that what we want it to what? Behave. Now, this is how our screen what? Looks like. So we have what? A phone section here. You can actually choose the type of phones here. Sorry, yeah. Here you choose iPhone SE, how it's going to look like on an iPhone, how it's going to look like on a Pixel 5, how it's going to look like. We can actually do the editings for most of these devices, but then that's not part of today. So we just want it to be what? Responsive. So when you reduce it, it doesn't hide and other stuff. Even though we can fix this space here, it's going to make the video so long. So I would end here, and then I hope you enjoyed the session. And then so let's check for the other data, that the one we just typed. So you see the second one, Ako Santana, is here. So I hope you enjoyed this session, and if you have anything to say, you can really put them inside the comment section. And bear with me, this is my first video, so if it's not the best form, the best way, I'm going to make sure I do better. Thank you very much for your time. Bye.